Clarkson University alumni and children's book author Sunny Dean has spent the past 6 years writing books about tougher topics. Most recently, just in time for the 2020 national election, Dean published her book, One Equals Many, discussing the current conversation of casting a vote.
Actually got the idea from a friend of mine who had been really frustrated with the amount of just divisiveness and hostility in the current political climate. And she had been really struggling with the fact that she only had one vote. You know, what does one vote matter? And when you look at millions of votes cast, and I said, well, everyone matters. And I thought, well, if that's a tough concept for adults to get, it can be really hard for children to understand that every single vote makes a difference. Part of it now is that the political climate has become much more divisive, and I think there's a lot of people who are really genuinely turned off by the partisan politics and the hostility of it. And I think so much so more this election cycle than before, it's really truly pitting neighbor against neighbor. And I think there's something that when grown-ups are exposed to that sort of environment, the natural instinct is to just shut down and not really discuss it with children. But I think that's the absolute worst thing we can do, because if children aren't learning the power of their own vote and that our government works for us and that we can have a say, I think when people don't learn that, it can be pretty overwhelming and really frustrating to feel so helpless.
The goal for the book itself is to teach children, and sometimes adults, the importance of exercising the right to vote.
One of the things that we wanted to do with the book was really break things down into the most simple terms. The book is targeted towards very young children, and we want to make it easy for them to understand that even though something may be very small and very personal, like a vote, it can actually add up. And I think one of the things that really floored me was looking at how many people didn't vote in the 2016 election or the 2018 election, and what a difference those people who sat on the sidelines would have made. So I think just the idea that every little bit counts, and even though we feel like we only have a small piece of the puzzle, when you take a step back and you see just the sheer numbers, we can really make some wonderful change, and we can really make sure that our democracy works for us. Another thing that has been really nice with this particular book has been that we've gotten a few folks who have read it and said, wow, I was kind of on the fence about voting, and I know now I really need to cast that vote, because even though they may live in a state that is really strongly tilted one way or another, their vote does matter. And I think sometimes we can kind of forget that all of us together collectively can make such a huge difference.
As the book targets younger elementary students, Dean discussed her viewpoint on the importance of teaching children why voting matters at such an early age, ultimately portraying the title that every vote matters.
I think that it's so critical that children learn at a young age, even though clearly they can't vote as children, that they understand that we are all active participants in the democracy, and that all of us have an obligation not only to understand the candidates and where they stand and what the world would be like under the different candidates, but it is critical for them to understand that they have a voice and that they can help choose how our world is, how our tax dollars are spent, and what kind of world we live in.
In the future, Dean shared that One Vote Matters, Together We Can Change the World is making its way into classrooms, as she is working with states across the country to incorporate her message into curriculum. For ABC 50 Now, I'm Isabella Colello.